It's amazing how often in our own lives we run into rules, sometimes seemingly simple ones, but then you start digging just a little and you find all these exceptions, these caveats, and this whole history that's way more complex than you first thought.
Oh, definitely. Like even think about, I don't know, traffic laws or something. There's always a story there.
Exactly. Or a school dress code, even rules for a board game. There's always a reason why something is or isn't allowed, right? You have
Mm,
to uncover the whole story.
that's so true. And usually those stories come from real world problems, don't they? The need to adapt. It's rare that a rule just appears out of nowhere. It's usually a reaction.
Right, a response to something that actually happened. And that's really our mission today. We're taking a deep dive into an ancient text called Vassupanāyikakkhandhaka.
It sounds a bit intimidating, maybe.
It does sound like a mouthful. But
Mhm.
let me give you some context. This is a specific section of the Vinaya Pitaka, that's the monastic rule book, that's actually in the Buddhist Pali Canon.
Yeah.
Super early, really foundational stuff.
One of the core texts.
Yeah. And this specific part lays out the really intricate rules for the Buddhist monastic rainy season retreat, which is called Vassā. Our goal here is to, well, uncover the whole story behind these rules,
Yeah.
how they grew out of practical issues and ethical thinking.
It's a fantastic window, really, into how an ancient spiritual path tried to balance its high ideals with the day-to-day realities of life and the environment, too.
Totally. It shows how much thought went into keeping that monastic community going. So what can you expect from this deep dive? Well, look at the initial problem that even started this whole retreat idea, then the specific exceptions monks and nuns got for travel.
The loopholes, almost. Or, well, necessary
Necessary
exceptions.
exceptions, yeah.
Mm.
And then the situations where a retreat could actually be broken entirely, which is surprising. And even the funny details about where they could and definitely couldn't spend their retreat time.
It's like a case study in ancient rulemaking, showing how they took their time to get it right, to really understand the whole picture.
Okay, let's dive in. Where does this story start?
It starts in Rajagaha, which was a major city back then. The Buddha and his monks were based there.
Right. And initially, there wasn't this formal retreat.
No, not at first.
Hmm.
Monks were traveling all the time, winter, summer, and importantly, right through the rainy season, too, just constantly on the move.
Wow, imagine that during monsoon season.
Mm-hmm.
Muddy roads, everything teeming with life.
Exactly. And that became the problem. This constant travel, especially during the rains when, plants are growing, insects are everywhere, it started causing friction.
Friction with who?
With the local people, the lay community, they started complaining. And these weren't just small grumbles.
No.
No, they were pretty upset. They saw these Sakiputiya ascetics, that's what they called the Buddhist monks, trampling the new green vegetation.
Oh, okay. Like literally damaging plants.
Yeah, and harming what they called one-sense living beings plants, but also, lots of tiny creatures, insects, and things that you just can't avoid stepping on when the ground is wet and full of life.
So it's an environmental concern, but also maybe a perception issue.
Definitely both. People noticed that other groups of ascetics, even ones whose teachings they didn't think much of, they did settle down during the rains. And they even pointed out that birds build nests and stay put for the rainy season. So it made the Buddhist monks look, well, maybe less compassionate, less mindful by comparison.
Ouch. That's bad PR for a new spiritual movement trying to gain respect.
Exactly. It was becoming a real issue.
Yeah.
So when the Buddha heard about these complaints, they were apparently quite widespread. He addressed it directly.
What did he do?
He called the monks together, laid out the problem, and then formally permitted them to undertake this rainy season retreat, the Vassā.
So a direct response to the public outcry, trying to align their actions with their values and maybe manage that public image too.
Precisely. A very practical solution to a real-world problem.
Okay, so permission granted, but then the monks probably thought, okay, great, but when do we do this?
Right. Logistics. Always the next question. And the Buddha provided the structure. He laid out two options. The early retreat, starting after the Asali full moon,
Okay.
and the late retreat, which started a month after that Asali full moon. So a clear time frame, two choices, but a definite period.
Got it. So problem identified, solution proposed, time frame set, smooth sailing from there.
Not quite. You know how it is. Enter a group known as the Chibagya monks.
Uh-oh, these sound like trouble.
They often were. In the text, they apparently undertook the retreat, formally started it, but then they just traveled during it anyway.
Seriously, after the rule was made.
Yep. Just ignored it, it seems. testing the limits maybe.
So what happened then? More complaints?
You guessed it, renewed complaints from the public again, and probably from other monks too. It was the exact same problem all over, harming living beings, looking bad. It basically defeated the whole purpose of having the retreat rule in the first place.
Right, undermining the whole thing. So the Buddha had to step in again.
He did. He had to get stricter. He declared that a monk who undertakes the retreat early or late simply should not leave. Period.
If they did.
If they did leave without a valid reason, it incurred an offense of wrongdoing, a dukkata. So, clear consequences now. No more ambiguity.
Okay, that seems straightforward. But did the Chibagyas find other ways around it?
It seems they tried. The texts mention further clarifications were needed. Some of these monks, still resisting, just flat out refused to undertake the retreat at all.
Just opted out entirely.
Right. So that had to be explicitly forbidden too, also a dukkata offense if you just refused.
Okay.
And others, maybe being a bit sneaky, would apparently arrange to be away from their designated residence on the exact day they were supposed to formally start the retreat, like intentionally bypassing it.
Wow. That's quite deliberate.
It is. So that also became a dukkata offense. You can really see this process of finding loopholes and then closing them. They were trying to uncover the whole story of how people might try to avoid the rule.
It's fascinating. But then there's this interesting bit of flexibility, isn't there? Something about a king.
Ah, yes. King Bimbisara, a very important figure, a major patron of the early Sangha. King Senyo Bimbisara of Magadha apparently wanted the monks to postpone their retreat for some reason.
And the Buddha said, okay.
He permitted monks to comply with the wishes of kings in such cases, which is really interesting, right? It shows this pragmatic side.
Yeah, how much influence did these royal patrons actually have? Was this common, or just a special case for Bimbisara because he was so important?
That's a great question. It definitely highlights how the Sangha had to navigate the real world, the politics and social structures of the time. Having powerful supporters like Bimbisara was crucial for resources, for protection.
So it wasn't necessarily compromising core beliefs, but maybe practical diplomacy.
Exactly. Practical navigation, acknowledging that the community relied on lay support, sometimes very powerful lay support. It shows an awareness of those external factors.
Okay, so the main rule is stay put. But life happens, right? Emergencies, obligations. So were there exceptions?
Yes, absolutely. And this is where it gets really detailed. The 7-day exception is key here.
7 days. Why 7? Any idea?
The texts don't explicitly say why 7, but it seems like a reasonable short period. Long enough to deal with something urgent, but not so long that it completely undermines the retreat.
Makes sense. How did this exception come about? Was there a specific incident?
There was. The text mentions a lay follower named Udena in Kosala. He'd built a monastery, a significant act of generosity.
Okay.
And he invited the monks to come, presumably for an opening or some ceremony, but they were already in their retreat.
And they said no, because of the rule.
They initially declined, yes, sticking strictly to the no-travel rule. But Udena, being the patron who built the place, was understandably put out. He complained.
Another complaint leading to a rule change, or rather a refinement.
Exactly. It shows the Buddha listening to feedback, especially from key supporters. So, in response, he permitted monks to leave if invited for a 7-day task. The term is sadahakaranena.
A 7-day task, okay. But only if invited by certain people.
Yes. The law is specific. Another monk, a nun, a female trainee, a male novice, a female novice, a male lay follower, or a female lay follower. Basically anyone within the wider Buddhist community.
Got it. And the absolute key condition.
You had to return within those 7 days. It wasn't a license to just wander off. It was a temporary leave for a specific purpose.
Okay, so what counted as a valid 7-day task if you were invited?
Well, a lot of things, actually. Things related to supporting the Sangha, like accepting donations or overseeing the completion of buildings that a lay follower had built for the community.
Buildings like?
Oh, the list is quite extensive. Monasteries, half-storied houses, mansions, caves, cells, storehouses, assembly halls, fire rooms, huts, toilets, walking paths, wells, bathhouses, ponds, pavilions, parks, you name it.
Wow. That covers pretty much any kind of infrastructure the community might need.
It really does. And it applied even if the building was for a specific group, like just for nuns or even for the layperson's own use, but they wanted monastic blessing or involvement somehow. It shows that deep connection between the lay supporters and the monastics.
Makes sense. What else besides construction or donations?
Preserving the teachings was crucial. You could leave for 7 days to learn or teach a sutta, one of the discourses. If there was a danger, it might be forgotten or lost.
Oh, that's significant. Protecting the knowledge itself.
Absolutely vital for the tradition's continuity. And then there was a sort of catch-all. Any other urgent business or duty, for unforeseen circumstances.
Okay, that covers invited reasons.
Oh.
But you mentioned earlier there were reasons you could leave for 7 days even without an invitation.
Yes, and this is where you see a really profound level of care built into the system. It wasn't just about external obligations, but about immediate welfare needs.
Like what?
Primarily, illness. A monk could leave to care for another sick monk, nun, novice, or trainee. Or, and this is quite striking, to care for one's own sick mother or father.
Really? Their lay family?
Yes. That bond was still recognized as incredibly important. You didn't need an invitation for that. You could go to find food for them, find someone to help care for them, get medicine, or even just go to check on them and offer support.
That's quite compassionate. Prioritizing family and fellow monastics in times of sickness.
It shows a deep humanity within the rules. And it wasn't just physical illness.
Yeah.
Spiritual or disciplinary struggles. A monk could leave to help another monk or nun who was experiencing serious discontent, dissatisfaction, inamorati, or maybe deep anxiety or remorse, kukuka.
So mental health support, essentially.
In a way, yes. Or if someone had developed wrong views, dahigata, that needed addressing. Or if they'd committed a serious offense requiring formal processes like probation, penance, or rehabilitation. Even if someone was facing community disciplinary action or had already faced it, you could go to support them through that process, help them find resolution.
That points to a very strong sense of community responsibility.
Immense. And it also covered practicalities like ordination, helping a female trainee with her training, or a novice seeking full ordination, or a novice needing specific instruction, maybe even about the retreat rules themselves.
Meta.
Right. And finally, community support. If a monastery or residence was falling apart, a monk could go out for 7 days to help gather resources, maybe coordinate repairs if a lay follower offered help.
It's such a detailed picture. It really feels like they tried to anticipate so many potential situations, really uncover the whole story of what might come up during 3 months of retreat.
They absolutely did. It's clear these rules weren't just made up. They evolved based on experience.
Okay, so that's the 7-day temporary leave. But what about situations that were so bad, so extreme, that the retreat could just be called off entirely, annulled?
Yes, there were provisions for that too. Again, prioritizing safety and basic survival above the strict observance of the retreat.
What kind of situations warranted breaking the retreat completely?
Extreme dangers were top of the list. If monks were seriously threatened by wild animals, the text mentions Vassā, or snakes, sirisapa, or robbers, Quora.
Okay, real physical threats.
Or even what they perceived as hostile spirits or demons, Pisaka. If the threat was genuine and severe, you could leave. Safety first.
Makes sense. What about natural disasters?
Yes, that too. If the village where they were staying burned down or got washed away in a flood, and as a result there was no way to get food pitia antarayo hoti, they could break the retreat.
Lack of food is pretty fundamental.
Absolutely. Or if their specific residence, their dwelling place, was destroyed by fire or flood. You can't exactly retreat without shelter.
True. Any other reasons related to basic needs?
Yes, even if there wasn't a disaster, if they simply couldn't get enough food, either basic alms food or more substantial meals, or if they couldn't find suitable food or suitable medicines, or even suitable attendants if they were needed, the retreat could be annulled.
So a baseline of well-being had to be maintained.
Right. You can't pursue spiritual practice effectively if you're starving or seriously ill without care.
Okay, those seem like practical survival reasons.
No.
Were there any stranger reasons or more internal ones?
There were definitely reasons related to moral or spiritual danger, which are quite fascinating.
Like what?
Temptation. If a monk felt seriously tempted perhaps by offers of wealth or by women, prostitutes, young girls, or even eunuchs trying to lure them away from monastic life.
Well,
Or if relatives, kings, robbers, or just general rogues were putting intense pressure on them or offering inducements that threatened their vows, they could leave.
so protecting their ethical commitments was a reason to break retreat.
Yes. And related to that, if a monk happened to discover ownerless treasure, a samikanithi, and they genuinely feared that dealing with it or even knowing about it would corrupt their mind,
They could just walk away, even from treasure.
they could break their retreat and leave, yes. The preservation of their mental purity and commitment to non-attachment was considered more important.
That's a really strong statement about priorities.
It is, and perhaps the most significant reason of all for annulling the retreat
Yes.
was the danger of schism in the Sangha.
Splitting the community.
Exactly. If a monk saw or even heard reliably that a group of monks or nuns was actively trying to cause a schism, a major division in the community, they were permitted, even encouraged, to leave the retreat to try and prevent it.
Regardless of who was involved.
Yes, whether the ones causing the schism were friends, or if the monk had friends who might be able to influence the situation positively. Preventing a split was paramount.
That really underscores how devastating schism was seen to be. More important even than the rainy season retreat.
Absolutely. Maintaining the unity and harmony of the Sangha was a core concern.
So we've talked about when you could move, if you could move. What about where you could actually stay during the retreat? Were there rules about the locations themselves?
Oh, yes. Very specific rules. And again, it seems tied to both practicalities and public perception. How things looked mattered.
What kinds of places were allowed for the retreat?
Interestingly, some fairly temporary or mobile places were okay. You could apparently undertake the retreat in a cattle fold, a vaha.
With the cows.
Seems like it. Or on a caravan, a satha, presumably traveling with merchants, or even on a boat, a nava.
Huh. Those seemed less settled than a monastery. Why were they okay?
Perhaps because they still offered some form of designated space or shelter, even if mobile, and maybe they were common situations monks found themselves in, but the forbidden places are even more revealing.
Okay, let's hear the don'ts.
You couldn't stay in a tree hollow rukasusira. The reason given, according to commentary or perception, was that it made monks look like demons or wild spirits.
Not a good look.
Definitely not. Nor could you stay perched on a tree branch, rukavyabi, because that apparently resembled hunters. Again, an image totally at odds with monastic life.
Right, associations matter. What else?
Staying out in the open air, ajakasa, was forbidden. Apparently, this led to monks getting caught in the rain and then trying to shelter awkwardly under trees or in little huts, which was seen as undignified.
So it was about maintaining decorum.
Decorum, and probably basic comfort, too. Related to that, you couldn't undertake the retreat without any fixed residence, asanasana kena, because that just led to suffering from cold or heat. Basic well-being again.
Makes sense. Any other forbidden spots?
A few more colorful ones. A charnel ground hut, chavakuka, was out. Why? It made you look like corpse burners, a very low-status, ritually impure profession.
Avoiding social stigma.
Precisely. Staying under an umbrella, chat-a, was forbidden, resembled herdsman, and maybe the oddest one. You couldn't live inside a large pot or urn, Kaya.
In a pot? Seriously?
Apparently. The reason given was that it made you look like sectarians, possibly referring to other ascetic groups who practiced extreme or unusual forms of austerity.
So it was also about distinguishing the Buddhist monks from other groups, maintaining their specific identity and reputation.
Exactly. All these location rules paint a vivid picture of the social and cultural landscape they were navigating. It wasn't just about internal discipline, it was about how the Sangha presented itself to the world.
Okay, so we've seen rules shaped by practical needs, public complaints, safety concerns, even social image. What about the simple act of keeping your word? How binding was a promise related to the retreat?
That brings us to the Upananda Sakiputta case, another instance involving one of the, shall we say, less rule-abiding monks.
Upananda again. What did he do this time?
Well, this monk, Upananda, had apparently promised King Pasenadi of Kosala, another important ruler, that he would undertake the early retreat at a specific place, likely favored by the king.
Okay, a commitment made to a royal patron.
Yes. But on his way there, Upananda passed by 2 other monasteries or residences where he saw there were many robes available, lots of potential donations or requisites.
Oh dear. Temptation strikes again.
Indeed. And Upananda gave in. He decided to ditch his plan and stay at one of these places with the robes instead, breaking his promise to King Pasenadi.
I can imagine the king wasn't happy.
Not at all. King Pasenadi complained, pointing out quite rightly that the Buddha himself condemns false speech. Lying is a fundamental breach of ethics. Other monks also complained about Upananda's lack of integrity.
So the Buddha had to deal with Upananda directly.
Yes. The text says the Buddha questioned Upananda, who presumably confessed, and the Buddha strongly condemned his actions. He reminded him very forcefully about the principle of abstaining from falsehood. It wasn't just bad manners, it was a serious ethical failing.
Did this incident lead to specific rules about breaking a retreat promise?
It did. It clarified the consequences. If a monk promised, say the early retreat at a certain place, but then left on the very first day without a valid 7-day task reason, or even left after 2 or 3 days just because they changed their mind,
Yeah.
their retreat was considered not properly undertaken, not valid, and they incurred a dukkha offense for breaking that initial commitment. The promise mattered.
Okay. But what if they did have a valid reason to leave temporarily?
Then the flexibility kicks in again. If they left for a valid 7-day task and, crucially, returned within the 7 days as required, then their retreat was still considered valid. No offense incurred. The legitimate need was recognized.
That seems fair. Balancing commitment with necessity.
Exactly. And there was even more leniency built in towards the end of the retreat period. If a monk had to leave, say, 7 days before the Pavarin, that's the ceremony marking the end of the retreat. And they left for a valid reason, one of those 7-day task type reasons. Their retreat was still considered valid, even if they didn't manage to return to that specific monastery before the Pavarin ceremony itself.
Oh, interesting. So a bit more leeway right at the end.
It seems so. Perhaps acknowledging that things might come up related to the end of retreat activities or preparations for travel afterwards. Similar rules applied to promises made for the late retreat, referencing the festival that marked its end.
This constant refinement, adding layers based on specific cases like Upanandas.
Yeah.
It really shows them taking the time to uncover the whole story, doesn't it? Thinking through all the possibilities.
Absolutely. It's not a rigid, unchanging code dropped from on high. It's a system that grew and adapted based on human behavior, practical needs, and ethical considerations.
Okay, let's try to pull this all together. We've really spent some time here digging into the Vassā rules, trying to uncover the whole story. And it started with something quite simple, didn't it? A basic need to, well, not step on bugs and plants during the monsoon, and to maintain a good public image.
Right. That initial problem, that friction with the local environment and community.
But from that starting point, it just blossomed into this incredibly detailed, really nuanced set of guidelines with exceptions and exceptions to the exceptions.
It really did. It wasn't just one decision, but this ongoing process. Responding to the Chabagya monks testing boundaries, responding to patrons like Udona, dealing with difficult cases like Upananda, thinking about safety, health, community harmony.
What really stands out, I think, is how these ancient rules, even with all their specifics, manage to balance the spiritual ideals, discipline, mindfulness, non-harming, with the messy, practical realities of human life and running a community.
That's the key takeaway for me, too. It shows a tradition adapting, learning, and refining its path. Not through just sticking rigidly to dogma, but through really careful, thoughtful consideration of almost every situation imaginable. It's wisdom born from experience.
It demonstrates a willingness to grapple with complexity, to acknowledge that life isn't always simple, and rules need to reflect that reality, at least to some extent.
Precisely. It's about finding that skillful balance.
So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What seemingly simple rules or guidelines in our own lives or our own organizations might actually have a much deeper, more complex story behind them if we just took the time to uncover it. What stands out to you listening to this from our deep dive today?